The average American spends $13 per person per day on food, nearly $1,000 monthly for a family of four. Yet in rural Pennsylvania, a mother sets the table for 12, and the entire meal costs less than 1 cup of coffee. The garden walk behind an Amish farmhouse, and you will not find a small garden bed. You will find open fields. Research shows Amish gardens are 2 to 3 times larger than average American gardens. In the plainest communities, up to 20 times larger. Families with just a quarter acre routinely grow enough fresh produce to feed 6 to 8 people without store-bought fertilizer or machinery. The garden is not a hobby. It is the financial foundation of everything that follows. 1,000 quarts of insurance. A single Amish family can preserve up to 1,000 quarts of food in 1 year. That figure comes from documented research on Swartz and Truber Amish households. Vegetables, fruits, broth, and canned meat are sealed into glass jars and stored in the cellar before winter arrives. Amish families preserve 5 to 12 times more food annually than the average American household. Each jar represents a future meal requiring no grocery trip, no cash, and no dependence on any supply chain. The summer harvest does not feed a family through a single season. It feeds them through the entire year that follows. The bulk ritual. When Amish families spend money on food, they do it with precision. A 50-pound bag of wheat berries costs around $24 at bulk food stores common across Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania. Raw honey purchased by the gallon, oats, cornmeal, dried beans, and sugar bought in quantities most Americans would never consider storing. No impulse purchases and no convenience markup anywhere in the process. The Amish know exactly how much flour 12 people consume per month and buy accordingly. Nothing more, nothing less. Bulk buying is not a modern strategy they adopted. It is simply the only way they have ever lived. Every animal earns its place. Nothing on an Amish farm earns its place without contributing something in return. Chickens are raised for eggs first. Swartz and Truber Amish families average more than 12 eggs per person per week, according to published research. When a hen stops producing, she becomes the next meal. In autumn, many families butcher a hog, and the meat is canned, smoked, and stretched across months of winter cooking. Deer hunted in fall provide venison that goes directly into canning jars and onto winter shelves. Every animal, from its first productive day to its very last, gives something meaningful back to the household. There is no waste built into this system because waste was never something a family of 12 could quietly absorb. Scratch cooking 3 full cooked meals a day, every single day, built entirely from scratch. That is the standard inside an Amish kitchen, not the exception. No boxed casserole mixes, no frozen meals pulled from a shelf, no processed shortcuts purchased for convenience. Amish girls begin learning to cook beside their mothers and grandmothers at around age 6. By their teenage years, many manage a complete meal independently without supervision. The result is a household where cooking is practiced with such daily repetition that it becomes genuinely efficient in ways most modern kitchens never reach. A loaf of bread baked at home from bulk flour costs under 50 cents. The same loaf at a grocery store costs $4 to $6. Multiply that difference across 12 people and every day of the year. The ice house. Before modern refrigeration became the assumed standard, Amish families constructed root cellars and ice houses, and many still rely on them fully today. Root cellars maintain naturally cool, stable temperatures through winter, keeping potatoes, carrots, turnips, cabbage, and hundreds of preserved jars without consuming a single watt of electricity. Ice harvested from frozen ponds during January is packed into insulated structures and used to keep perishables cool through spring and into the warmer months ahead. These are not primitive holdovers from a time before technology. They are carefully engineered solutions, refined through generations of daily practical use that cost nothing to operate once construction is complete. The average American household pays over $100 each month on electricity used specifically for refrigeration. The Amish pay nothing for it whatsoever. Year after year, compounded quietly, that zero becomes a significant and measurable financial advantage. Waste is forbidden. In an Amish kitchen, nothing leaves the household without being fully used first. Stale bread becomes bread pudding. Vegetable peels and scraps are composted or fed to pigs, which later provide both meat and cooking fat for the family. Grease saved from cooking sits in a jar beside the stove and is reused across multiple future meals without any hesitation. Leftover soup is reheated the following day, never discarded simply because it is a day old. Beyond the kitchen, worn clothing becomes cleaning rags before it becomes completely unusable. Fabric scraps are pieced carefully into quilts that outlast the hands that made them. Old lumber is repurposed before it is burned as fuel. The Amish relationship with waste is not a philosophy adopted from outside the community. It is embedded into every daily decision, every prepared meal, and every corner of how the entire household operates. Community is a food network. No Amish family sustains itself through individual effort alone. The community functions as a distributed food network with no formal structure, just shared understanding built over generations of living together in close proximity. When a neighbor's garden produces far more cucumbers than one family can preserve or consume, the surplus moves naturally to households that need it most. Produce auctions held in communities across LaGrange County, Indiana, and Holmes County, Ohio allow Amish farmers to trade and sell within the network at prices well below retail. Group butchering days bring several families together to process animals collectively, distributing both the labor and the yield among all who participate. When a family faces a hard season, a failed crop, a prolonged illness, unexpected loss, the community responds without hesitation. The system carries no gaps because the people surrounding it are the safety net, and they always have been. What they actually buy. After the garden, the cellar, the preserved jars, the livestock, and the community network, what remains to be purchased with actual cash is a strikingly short list. Salt, baking soda, sugar when the harvest falls short. Occasionally, some bulk purchased canned fruit that cannot be grown locally. Coffee, a modest amount of flour during leaner months. These are the items that require money. After the garden, the cellar, the preserved jars, the livestock, and the community network, what remains to be purchased with actual cash is a strikingly short list. Salt, baking soda, sugar when the harvest falls short, occasionally some bulk purchased canned fruit that cannot be grown locally, coffee, a modest amount of flour during leaner months. These are the items that require money. This is not an exaggeration. Researchers and observers of Amish communities consistently note that when Amish families visit stores like Walmart or Costco, they arrive with specific pre-written lists and leave without adding anything unplanned. There are no snack aisles browsed on impulse, no name brand products chosen for their packaging, no convenience items tossed in because they look appealing. Every purchase has a purpose, decided before the family left home. Shopping trips happen weeks apart. Unlike the average American household, which makes approximately 3 grocery store visits per week according to industry surveys, Amish families plan purchases in advance and buy in quantities that last. A single trip might cover the next 4 to 6 weeks of staple supplies. This discipline is not the result of strict religious rule. It is the logical outcome of having built a food system that produces most of what the household needs before money ever enters the picture. What they buy well. Bulk quantities of flour and sugar, purchased in 50-pound bags, cost a fraction of what the same amount would cost in standard retail packaging. Raw honey purchased by the gallon runs significantly cheaper per ounce than anything sold in a small branded jar. Every dollar spent is calculated against what the household already has stored, what it will need, and what represents the best value per unit across the coming weeks ahead. The real cost calculation? Here is where the numbers become genuinely difficult to argue against. The United States Department of Agriculture estimates that the average American family of 4 spends between $900 and $1,500 per month on food. Scale that conservatively to 12 people, and the figure climbs between $2,000 and $4,000 each month. Now, consider the Amish household. Researchers who have studied plain community economics estimate that an Amish family's actual monthly cash expenditure on groceries can fall to approximately $150, and in some households, meaningfully less than that. The gap is not explained by eating less food. It is not explained by hunger or sacrifice. Amish families sit down to 3 complete cooked meals every single day. The gap is explained entirely by the system built around the kitchen. A productive garden eliminates most of the produce bill. Home-raised animals eliminate the meat bill. Up to 1,000 quarts of preserved food eliminate the winter grocery bill almost entirely. Buying in bulk removes the premium built into every retail package. Cooking from raw ingredients removes the markup attached to processed food. Zero food waste removes the quiet financial loss that most American households absorb every week without measuring it. No single one of these decisions is dramatic on its own. Each appears modest in isolation, but made together consistently across every meal and every season of every year. The result is a family of 12 eating well on a number that most people, hearing it for the first time, simply do not believe is possible. Seasonal eating. Walk into an Amish kitchen in July, and you will find fresh tomatoes, green beans, sweet corn, and cucumbers pulled that same morning from the garden. Walk into the same kitchen in January, and you will find none of those things. What you will find instead are the jars, rows of preserved summer quietly waiting on cellar shelves. This is seasonal eating in its truest form. The Amish do not fight the calendar. They build their meals entirely around what the land is currently producing or what was preserved when it did. Summer brings abundance, raw vegetables, fresh eggs, garden herbs, and fruit eaten at peak ripeness. Fall means harvest work and preservation, when families spend long evenings canning tomatoes, pressing apple butter, and drying herbs for winter cooking. Winter shifts the menu toward root vegetables from the cellar, hearty soups built from preserved meat and broth, dense bread, and dried beans cooked slow over the wood stove. The modern American kitchen is entirely disconnected from this rhythm. Strawberries appear in December, corn arrives in February, everything is available at all times, flown in from distant places, and the price of that convenience is absorbed by the household budget every month without question. The Amish pay none of that cost because they eat what the season provides. Their food expenses track almost perfectly with nature. High labor in summer, low cash in winter. The rhythm itself is the saving strategy, and it has never required updating. When crops fail, not every harvest goes according to plan. A late frost kills the bean seedlings. A summer drought cuts the potato yield in half. A wet August rots tomatoes before they can be picked and processed. These things happen in Amish farming communities just as they happen anywhere else. The difference lies entirely in what comes next. The first layer of protection is the pantry itself. Because Amish families preserve food so aggressively during good years, up to 1,000 quarts annually in the most traditional households, a single difficult season rarely empties the shelves. The cellar holds surplus from previous years. A family that canned 800 quarts last summer and consumed 600 through winter enters the next growing season with 200 quarts already in reserve. The system is designed with failure built into the calculation from the very beginning. The second layer is the community. When one family's crop fails, neighbors share from their own harvest and stores without formal request or repayment schedule. Produce is exchanged, preserved goods are divided, and extra food appears at the door of households that need it. This is not charity in the way the modern world understands it. It is the community functioning exactly as it was designed to. As a collective insurance policy, no single family could afford to purchase alone. There are no government assistance applications, no emergency credit cards, no food bank visits. The system absorbs the failure quietly, and the family eats through winter regardless. This is not a story about poverty. It is not about deprivation, sacrifice, or going without. It is a story about a system, deliberately constructed, carefully maintained, and passed down with precision across generations of people who understood that food security is not purchased, it is cultivated. The Amish did not discover a secret the rest of the world missed. They held on to something once widely understood in farmhouses across this country before convenience food made forgetting it affordable enough to seem acceptable. The root cellar, the canning shelf, the productive garden, the community network, these are not romantic ideas from a simpler time. They are functional, tested, practical responses to a problem every household still faces every single day: how to feed people reliably and well without allowing money to become the deciding factor. The average American household discards approximately 30% of all food it purchases. Nationally, that amounts to over $150 billion thrown away every year. The Amish discard almost none. That single difference, compounded quietly across weeks, months, and years, explains more about the $5 figure than any other factor. What the Amish possess is not a budgeting strategy written in any book. It is a mindset shaped over 3 centuries that treats food as something cultivated with intention across seasons, not purchased with urgency when hunger arrives. The knowledge behind it has not vanished. It has only been set aside quietly, generation by generation, in exchange for convenience. Whether recovering it is worth the effort is a question every household still gets to answer entirely for itself.